Right, I would like to officially welcome everybody to this Thriver class. I'm Julia, the creator of Thrivers, and this is really exciting because this is our wealth workshop where every month we check into our finances to feel financially empowered. Today, we're going to be understanding where all of our relationship with money and where it is all stemmed from, which is really fascinating. Thrivers has been created to inspire and empower women to live the life they want. And there are a couple of newbies here, so welcome to Thrivers. If you haven't checked out the website already, we have inspiring interviews to inject that inspiration, so check them out. It's all different types of stories with inspiring women. And then we have these workshops where every month we partner with experts such as Leah today, who help deliver and impart their expertise on wellness, wealth and work. So we are so lucky today to have partnered with Leah Scogle from Mindful Wealth. Now, just before we start this workshop and I introduce Leah, I just want to check that everyone is happy with this Zoom platform. So if you haven't used this before, because I know there are a few new people here, on the bottom, we have a little icon, which is the Q&A icon. And that is where you can ask all your questions to myself and Leah. And you even have the option of using the anonymous box. So we try not to tend to say anyone's name, but if that just makes you feel more secure, so you can ask your questions, and that'll be great. And then we have the chat that's just here on the right. So anything you write there, everyone can see. And yeah, we're super friendly here, so don't hold back. Now, I know we've got a few new people here, so can you just tell us who's brave enough to tell us where they're calling in from today? Because I said that I'm here in South Africa on actually here for a friend's wedding, so luckily doing this online business stuff, that all works very well. Okay, cool, we've got someone from Adelaide, very nice. Brilliant, and we've got someone from Somerset in England. Brilliant. Someone from Sydney, a couple from Sydney, one from Melbourne. Hi there. So awesome. Okay, well, I can tell some people, a few people at least know how to use this. Okay, brilliant. We've got someone from New Zealand. That's so cool. I love this. Right, so today we are so honoured to have Leah Scogle, who's a certified money coach, and she has her own business called Mindful Wealth. And when I was looking for someone for this workshop in wealth, it was actually Nicole Hills, who was our last expert, who recommended I get in touch with Leah. And I was so happy she did, because I think this is a really unique way of, a really neat way of building our relationship with our money. So when I heard what Leah did, I thought it was really good to empower my attendees to have this knowledge. So Leah, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
And thank you so much for calling in from Vancouver. I have to tell everyone, it's actually 1 a.m. in Vancouver, so that's really cool. Yeah, Leah, could you tell us a bit about your business and what that entails?
Yeah, definitely. So my business is based around money coaching. And for those of you who don't know what money coaching is, it's based on the work of neuroeconomics. So we look at the psychology behind money, the reason why we do what we do with our money, and we look a little bit more into our habits, our attitudes, and our behaviors with money, rather than just what we do or our actions with money.
That's absolutely fascinating. I just can't wait for this, because some of our spending habits and understanding where they've stemmed from, I believe can really help moving forward. So when I was talking to you, Leah, about what kind of workshop we could deliver today, and you were talking about how important it is to kind of look at our relationship, look at our money as a relationship. Could you tell us why it's important to take this approach?
Yeah, definitely. So essentially, my background is financial planning. So I was a financial advisor, and I have 17 years personal financial planning experience. And I do understand it's very important to have a good financial plan in place, but it's also really important to understand what drives you and your emotions when it comes to money. You know, money plays a really important role in our everyday lives, and it's almost all consuming, because we spend so much time thinking thinking about it, we're working for it, we're spending it, or we're planning to spend it, we're arguing over it, we're stressing out about it. So it's definitely a very, very strong force in our lives. So it's very important that we understand what it is, how to use it, and how to use it in ways that creates more wealth and well-being in our lives.
Well, I can't wait to get started. Now, before I hand over for the main presentation and activity that you've got for us, I just want to tell everyone, as Leah's going through, just please ask your questions as you're going along, just to make sure that you fully have. You've got anything that comes up, just throw your questions in the Q&A or the chat. And as I said, there's no judgment here, so anything goes. We just want to make sure that you get the most out of this as possible. So over to you, Leah.
Thank you. And that's a really good point, because we don't often get a very good opportunity to talk about money in an open and safe environment. So I please do encourage you to ask away, ask any question that you have as it comes up. I'm going to stop and I'll answer them as we go, or we can answer them at the end. So to begin with, I'm going to start sharing my screen and we can get started. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen now. So today we're going to be talking about discovering your money personality. So to start off with, I wanted to give you a little bit of context about the role of money in our lives. And obviously I touched on before that money plays a really important part of our life. It's so important, in fact, that we've given it a pretty big task. We put it in charge of our happiness. We determine whether we feel wealthy by the amount of money that we have. We quite often mix up our self-worth and our net worth. We also use it to value ourselves. We also use it to value goods and services, obviously. We measure our level of success or not success with it. So it's really interesting to see how much power we give to money. And I always say that we can either control our money or our money is going to control us. And what's really interesting to note is that money is the leading cause of stress globally. It's the #1 reason that relationships break down. It's, quite often a very contributing factor to depression and suicide and even domestic violence. So it's really important that we start to understand that money is this vital sort of commodity in our everyday lives, and that we have what I call quite a complicated relationship with it. And our relationship with money can either be very limiting or very empowering. And whether we know whether it's limiting or empowering, quite often we don't, because it's actually, a lot of it is held subconsciously. A lot of our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs, they're all held subconsciously or just under the surface. And the reason that is because we as children, and even as young adults and into our adulthood, we're not taught about managing money. There's no kind of framework for it. It's not something we're taught at school. And a lot of us in our family dynamics didn't actually learn how to manage money well. And because of that, we picked up all of these little bits here and there along the way through what we witnessed, through what we heard and what we saw. And that kind of formed our money habits and our money thoughts and our money beliefs. So we kind of have like this eclectic array of information that we've then imprinted in our belief system around what is money and what it's not. And until we actually spend some time looking at what that is and bringing it up to the awareness, can we work out whether it's limiting or empowering us? And what's really important for us to understand is that the dynamic between money and the brain. So essentially we have 3 brains. We have our emotive brain, we have our reptilian brain, which is where we have the fight or flight kind of dynamic going on, and then we have our thinking brain. And unfortunately for most of us, we're not operating in our thinking brain when we use money. We tend to use money in a way that is quite emotive, so it's driven by fear or jealousy or greed or some kind of emotion, and that then drives our behavior. So just starting to just plant the seed that there's quite a lot going on underneath the surface when it comes to our relationship with money. This is one of my favorite sayings. because we are in a relationship with money, because money is a part of our everyday lives, we really need to realize that if money's not our best friend, we need to start making her our best friend. So I like to call and think about money as Miss Money. And I like to ask people to imagine for a moment that you're in a relationship with Miss Money. And I'd like you to think about how you would describe your relationship with her. Would you guys be best friends? Does she show up sometimes? Is she around when you need her? I'd like you just to have a moment and just think about what your relationship with money is at this point. And then I'd like you just to have a think about, so if we're in a relationship with money, just like any other relationship, we can either improve it by just paying a little bit more attention, showing it a little bit more love, giving it a little bit more energy in our time and awareness. We can improve our relationship. So just like that, I'd like you to think about money is your new best friend and all of the things that we can be doing to improve our relationship with it. Because when we do, we start to see it as the resource that can help us create more of what we want in our lives. More wealth, more well-being, more freedom, more success, whatever it is that you value, we can start to begin to use money in a way that empowers us to do that. So what drives your relationship with money? And I did touch on this a little bit before, but there are essentially three elements. The very first one is what we think about money. So this is our thoughts and our beliefs. And the second one is how we feel about it, so our emotions. And the third one, which is where most of us spend all of our energy on, is our actions. So let me put this into a little bit of context for you. Let's, for a moment, imagine that we're going to set a budget. And this is something that most of us know how to do. So it's the action of doing a budget, spending less than we earn and telling our money where it should go. So that's all well and good that we've got the budget in place, we're taking action. But if we don't have positive thoughts and empowering emotions and beliefs behind us, we're never going to align it. It's never going to create the result we want. And by that, I mean, if, for example, we feel like we're going to be deprived, or we feel like budgets are really restrictive, or we feel like we really don't want to be doing this budget, then initially we're already out of alignment with the action that we're taking. But then if we also think that budgets suck and that we're going to have a horrible time, we're already sort of starting to misalign, and we're not going to get the results that we want. So it's really important to make sure that if you are taking any actions with your money, that you are aligning it with what you think and what you feel. So who is in control of your relationship with money? And I really like this image because it does represent exactly what's going on. For most of us, it's around about the age of 7 to 12 is our core patterning when it comes to money. So most of what we think, most of what we believe, and most of what we do is driven by our younger self. So there is a lot of psychology to say that our core beliefs are ingrained by the age of 7. And that is coming from family, from schooling, from TV, social media these days. And that's basically lurking under the subconscious and driving our patterns and our beliefs and our behaviors as adults. And I find that really fascinating to think that we have this sort of immature self driving what's going on with our adult self. And it's no wonder that we're not always getting the results that we really want. So what we're going to do today is explore some of these subconscious beliefs, habits, and emotions that are going on with money, and see if we can create some awareness around what's going on for you individually. Because until we're aware of what's going on, we can't change it. We don't have the power to change it. So today is an opportunity for us to create some awareness and see who is in control of your relationship with money. So we're going to get to know your money type. And what I'm going to ask you all to do is, if you're online at the moment, which you are, I want you to jump onto a website, and this is the website link. So it's quiz.mindfulwealth.com.au, and it's going to bring up a page.
Yeah, I've just put that in the chat as well, if those people just want to click on that link.
So if we can all click onto that link. I'm not going to bring it up, but it just brings up a page with a whole lot of words on it. And what I want you to do is I want you to click all of the words that relate to you and money at this point in time. I don't want you to think about how you should be or how you think you might be or how you were yesterday. It's really important just to go, okay, these are words that which resonate with me right at this point in time when it comes to money. So it shouldn't take too long. I don't want you to overthink it. Just have a quick go at clicking it, and then when you've got that, click submit. You might need to put in your name and email address so you can get your results. And we'll just give everyone a few minutes to complete that.
If anyone can't access this now, there is a record, just to remind everyone, there is a recording of this. It's sent to everyone afterwards, so you'll be able to do the quiz after this session as well, and then go through the webinar and look at what Leah's going to go through and understand what your money type is. So if you can't access it for some reasons, I know some people do these on their commute home and they're on their iPhone, so yeah.
Makes it a bit difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
While we're doing that, I'll explain a little bit about where the quiz came from. So this quiz was developed by Deborah Price, who is the founder of the Global Certified Money Coaching Institution based in LA. She developed this quiz based on Jungian psychology. So she looked at what archetypes were and how they play out to shape our profile. So an archetype is not our personality. It is more a blueprint of our habits, attitudes, and behaviors, which gives us a bit of a framework to tell us what our patterning may be. So it's really important differentiation that we're not doing a personality quiz, we're doing a what's going on with our attitudes and behaviors. And that's going to be quite influential when we come through in the next sort of few slides and you get your results. So maybe when everyone's kind of ready, if they can just type a yes in the chat box, just so we know that everyone's on the same page.
A couple of people whoever's come in a little bit later, Leah's just telling us about a money quiz, and if you want to do that now, the link is in the chat on the right hand side, so just click on that. It only takes, what is it, like a couple of minutes, Leah?
Yeah, a couple of minutes.
Otherwise, free to do it afterwards. I'm going to be sending this video out afterwards, so no panic. Okay, we've got a couple people that are done. Does anyone else need a few more minutes? Okay, you've got a couple more people have said they're done, so.
Okay. All right, well, we'll start off with, I'll start slowly into the work through. So what I'm going to do in the next little while is I'm going to run through the 8 different archetypes when it comes to money. And what's really important to understand is that we actually generally have all of these archetypes. If not now, at some point in our life, we would have had some of them. And most of us are going to have 1 or 2, sometimes a few more, dominant or what we call active archetypes. And then the other ones may be passive. But we generally have 1 or 2, which are what I like to call driving the car of our relationship with money. And they're the ones that are ultimately going to be playing out the dynamics and creating the reality that we're facing every day with money. So we're going to go through each of the 8. I want you to remember that this is not your personality. There's no right or wrong. This is just creating awareness around what's going on for us right now. So we'll start off with the very first one. And the first one that we have is the innocent archetype. So all of us as young children start out as the innocent archetype. And what's really interesting with this one is that the innocent archetype tends to feel like they don't have the money gene. They kind of feel quite anxious when it comes to money, often sometimes fearful as well over what money represents. They tend to leave the management of money to someone else. So for me, when I work with these types of clients, they quite often have a whole lot of unopened envelopes in their drawers or on the kitchen bench or wherever it is that they like to put the envelopes, because they don't want to have a look at what's happening with their money situation. They'd rather put their head in the sand and just cross the fingers and hope that Prince Charming or someone else is going to come in and save the day and look after all of it for them. So that's sort of the first one, very trusting with money, interested in money, but feel a little bit fearful or anxious about it. The second archetype that we see is the victim archetype. So the victim archetype tends to live in the past. So something's happened, whether it's something they're fearful of or embarrassed over or have a little bit of shame or guilt around, or even just a bit annoyed about. So someone might have taken money from them, or they might feel like they haven't received what they deserve in the past. They didn't get the raise, or they didn't get what they thought was fair with money. So they tend to live in the past. So rather than focus on what's happening with their current situation with money, they kind of give up and go, what's the point? This whole money game is rigged. I don't think it's even worth bothering about. So I'm going to actually just forget about it. If I just not even think about it, it's not going to matter. So they also tend to bury their head in the sand, but in a different kind of way. The third archetype is the warrior. And if you imagine a warrior and you think about what a stereotypical warrior might look like, they're generally very resourceful. They have a plan, they have a strategy, and they've got all of the tools or the know-how on how to tackle whatever comes up for them at any point in time. So obviously the warrior is quite a powerful archetype in the fact that they are confident and they are prepared and they're ready to go. So when we're looking at what kind of archetypes we do want to cultivate in our relationship with money, we do want to try and cultivate the warrior. The warrior is what we call the master of the external or the material world. They know what to do, they know where they want to go, and they've got all of the resources available to them, or know where to go to get them in order to manifest what they want to create. So whenever I'm working with clients, we always look at trying to develop your inner warrior, because that's you standing in confidence and calmness and preparedness and ready to tackle this money thing. The fourth one, and this is one that I see with a lot of women and particularly mothers, is the martyr. And the martyr is generally starts off as a warrior. So they're very good with their money. However, they have a tendency to overgive, and they tend to be quite generous to the point where there's often not a lot left over for them. And that might be time, but it also might be money. They tend to give and give and give until the point where their cup is depleted and they feel like there's just not enough left for them. The martyr archetype tends to have trouble with some boundaries, and I quite often would say are quite self-sacrificing and like to take care of everybody else. So we do see a lot of women who develop this archetype because it's natural for us in our roles as mothers and caretakers and looking after elderly parents or siblings or even partners and children, that we are always giving to other people. So that quite often flows into our dynamic with money as well. Where are we up to? Number 5, the Fool archetype. Now, the Fool archetype is probably the most fun archetype. If you're going somewhere on a holiday, you want to take the Fool with you because they are the ones that like to have a good time. They also tend to be fairly impulsive, fairly spontaneous. There is that saying, a fool and his money will soon be parted. That's actually kind of rings true. They're the ones that have FOMO, fear of missing out, don't want to miss out on a good opportunity. They're the type of people who say to you, I've heard of this amazing investment opportunity, I'm going to make $1 million, you've just got to jump in right now. You know, they tend not to do their research, and that's one of their biggest downfalls, is that whilst they're confident and they're ready to, jump all in, they tend not to do what we need to do, is look into the research and make sure that we cross all the T's and dot the I's before we jump straight in head first. So the Fool doesn't have any problem making money. They have a problem hanging on to money and keeping it long enough to do something good with it. But they are quite fun to be around, and all of us do need a little element of the Fool in our lives to create a little bit of balance and make sure that we have a healthy relationship with money as well. It's just that we don't want the Fool to drive the car. It'd be a bit dangerous. Probably end up in Las Vegas somewhere. Okay, the next one, the creator artist. The creator artist is an archetype that I tend to work a lot with. I have a lot of clients who are this archetype, and the creator artist is probably the most conflicted of all archetypes because they have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with money. They tend to be non-materialistic and kind of caught between the need for money, but also not wanting to have money because they feel that sometimes it muddies their art, or it muddies their spirituality. Quite a lot of yogis and other sort of healer modalities, they all are creator artists generally. So it can be an interesting confliction because there is an underlying belief system that money is sometimes the root of all evil, and it's not okay to have money, or it's not okay to be artistic or creative and have money. So this one is an interesting dynamic at play, because it's not difficult to create money, but it can be very hard to hang on to it or feel worthy of it. So it's an interesting one that comes up for a lot of creative types out there. The seventh, the seventh one is called the tyrant, and the tyrant is one that is very alive and well in corporate land these days, but also we are marketed to this specific archetype. It's the you need more to be happy kind of archetype. It's I will not be happy until I have everything, and money represents power. So it's very unusual for women to have a very strong tyrant. It's more likely to be in men. However, you do sometimes see the patterning in tyrants. And tyrant behavior is not, or archetypes are not necessarily bad, because it does create a level of materialism, which can be healthy unless it's overused. But it can, and it where it comes from is generally a deeper sense of wounding. So these people were once warriors, and then they kind of, something happened in their situation where they thought, well, the only thing that's really going to bring me happiness in life is money. So we start to explore and unravel that to see why that's the case and what's gone on to create that dynamic. But quite often we will see that those people who display that money is power, I can buy my way to happiness, underneath that are quite hurting, or there's some kind of fear or sadness there that's driving that behavior, because obviously we cannot buy our way to happiness. Well, not true and lasting happiness anyway. The last one, and the one that we should all aspire to also have, is the money magician. So whilst the warrior was the master of the external or the material world, the magician is the master of the inner world. So when we have a magician archetype, it essentially means that we have done the self-work, we've done the exploration, and we've done the necessary deep dive to really explore what's going on with us personally and our relationship with money. And we have the balance and the self-belief to know that we can transform pretty much anything in a way to manifest what we want to create using this wonderful tool called money. So it is a bit of an ideal situation. Is the master of the internal world, so coupled with the warrior who's the master of the material world, we actually have a really nice yin and yang going on. So whenever we're trying to aspire to a good relationship with money, we want to make sure that we're using the head, the warrior, the logic, but we're also using the heart, which is the magician, to make sure that we're aligning both what we're thinking, what we're feeling, with the actions that we're taking. So we really want to start to explore how do we balance these, and how do we create a healthy dynamics that sees us balancing head and heart, warrior and magician, so that we can begin to use this tool called money to create more of what we want in our life. So after explaining all of those, I'm wondering whether anyone felt like some of it resonated, or some kind of truth sort of went, oh, that sort of sounds a little bit like my dynamic with money. Remembering that we probably all have different situations with money in different archetypes, and where you are today may not necessarily be where you are tomorrow, because our relationship with money is always changing and evolving, because life changes and evolves all the time as well. So that's kind of a very brief overview of the 8 archetypes. Obviously there's a lot of information in there, but hopefully it's given you a little bit of information to start with what's going on with the underlying. So this is all the stuff that's happening below the surface. And I like to say, with awareness, I create clarity and control. And by that, I mean, we cannot start to change an outcome until we know what's actually driving that in the first place. So the purpose of doing a quiz like this and using archetypes is just to help us become aware of what's going on underneath the surface. And then with that awareness, we have power to work out whether it's limiting or whether it's empowering, and whether we want to shift it or whether we want to keep it. So a lot of my clients will come to me and say, well, this is my archetypes and this is what's happening in my reality with money at the moment, and this is where I want to be. And then that's the point where we can say, well, are you happy with where you are, or would you like to be somewhere else? And that's where we can sort of make the changes. But it's not until we're aware of what's going on can we actually shift it. And quite often we just keep repeating the same mistakes and wondering why we're not getting a different result. And I see that all the time. And we're human, we're human beings, and we make mistakes, but we need to actually understand what's driving it from a thought basis and from an emotional basis as well, because there is no such thing as money decisions. They are life decisions, and money can bring out the best and the worst in us without even our fault, basically. It's just because a lot of it is habit. So from here, where do you go? You've got all this information, knowledge is power, all of that kind of stuff. I've heard it a million times, but what's really important is, how do we actually take this knowledge and do something with it? So I sort of thought I'd just outline a few steps for you. So first of all, the very first point is to get clear on your money story. So your money story is pretty much all of the events in your life and the experiences in your life that have led you to have your current relationship with money. So all of those really significant points in your life where you got your first job, or you bought something significant. It might have just been some clothing that you've loved your whole life, or it might have been your car, or it might have been the first time that you invested some money, or the first time you didn't pay back some debt, or the first time you got your credit card. All of those, we start to put them in a timeline, and we start to see what some of the patterns are that have been created along the way. And this creates our money story. And every single one of us has a complicated money story. And it's not until we actually look at the money story, make peace with the money story, and then shut the chapter in order to write a new chapter, can we actually move on. And it's actually a really empowering process, because we can quite often see a lot of what's happened in the past and then look at it in the future and go, wow, okay, I want to choose a new direction for this new chapter in my money story. So that's sort of the starting point, is to get really clear on what's happened in the past, make peace with it, and then decide to make a new future. So the second part is establishing what you want to achieve in the future. And this part is really important. And I want to emphasize here what you want to achieve, and not what you think you should achieve, and not what society tells you you should be achieving, but what you personally want to achieve with your money. And one of the keys here is to start thinking about how you define wealth for yourself. So as a society, we tend to mix up the words money and wealth and use them interchangeably. So we say someone's wealthy, meaning that they have a lot of money, yet we know that money can't buy absolutely everything. So I like to get people to have a think about, how do you define wealth? And in order to feel wealthy, what would you need in your life? What things would need to be present? So to give you an example, when I did this exercise years ago, I thought about what it would be, and I wrote down things like health and love and freedom, and money. Money was in my wealthy list, connection, travel. So all of these sort of things that I thought, if I had these things, I would feel very wealthy. And once we can start to define it, it gives us two things. Firstly, it gives us a framework to use money to create more of those things. And the second one is, it gives us our own blueprint for putting together our goals and our action plan to create a life that we love, and a life that's actually going to bring us lasting happiness, so that we're not always chasing more, or just going after more money or more things or bigger things. And the last point on here, the third point that I want to go through, and part of the reason that I called my business Mindful Wealth, is all about mindfulness. And mindfulness is about bringing your attention to the very present moment. It's about not having judgment. It's about just being aware and intentional about what we're going to do in this moment. So I always like to say it's really important to have goals and to have a pinpoint of where you want to head on the map, a destination that you're heading to, but not getting too attached to the journey, and instead just focusing on the steps that you're taking on the journey to make sure that you're enjoying the process as well. So mindful action, and then mindful learning, and then supporting yourself with coaching or advice or reading, or there are so many cool podcasts out there and webinars like this that can support you in developing and focusing on what you can do in this very moment to get you one step closer to where you want to be. So those are kind of the three elements that I like to think about and focus on when we look at our relationship with money. And this is kind of different from your traditional financial advice model, because a lot of it is very strategic and planning, very warrior focused. But this work is also very magician focused. So it's about aligning the heart with the head and making sure that we're using the tool, the logical thing, the money, with actually aligning it with what we want to achieve with the heart. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight into the steps that are involved in healing your relationship with money, understanding that money is very complex and that we all have very individual relationships with it. And I guess I wanted to leave, before we get into some questions, on this note here. So when I first started to get into this money coaching world, I was really inspired by this quote, which is by Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "Your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny." And I think that sums up this process beautifully, because if we're aware of what our beliefs are and what our thoughts are, and then what our words are and how they shape our actions, which create our habits and ultimately our values and our destiny, we can sort of see how they're all interlinked. And so we can go back to the very beginning and say, let's start looking at our beliefs to begin with and see what that unravels, because quite often it's like pulling a little piece of string, and we start pulling it, and then the whole thing kind of unravels, and it creates a huge amount of awareness that we didn't even know what was going on in the first place. So I just thought I wanted to share that with you, because I really love that quote of his.
Brilliant, thank you, Leah. So we do have some questions that have popped up. Someone's asked something about the money story, and asked if their parents, connection with money, and when you were brought up, should that be included in your own money story?
Yes. Okay. So because we weren't taught about money in any formal way, our parents and what we saw them do with money is probably our most critical or important guideline as to what shaped our own relationship with money, our own story with money. If you're trying to recreate your story, and there is a whole process around it, but if you're trying to do it on your own, the easiest way to start is to start thinking about, what do I remember? What was my very first money memory? And it could be something very simple, like receiving some pocket money, or getting a present at Christmas time, or having some money to go and buy some lollies at the store. So just starting to explore and play around with, what are some of the things that I do remember about money? What did I hear? What did I do? What did I see? And starting to just write those down. And you start to find that once you start writing them, all of these memories keep popping up. And it's quite amazing what you do start to remember, and how many patterns and things start to appear when we start writing it out.
Yeah, someone's actually on the back of that. Someone said that their parents would argue a lot about money. And now they do feel like money is a very stressful topic, whether it's positive or negative. How do you suggest changing that once you've identified that could be, a big reason for the way you spend or feel anxious about spending?
It's a really good question. And, when we witness something like that, so if we've witnessed where our parents argued a lot about money, and that creates in us a belief system that if we're going to have money, then we're probably going to argue about it, or it's going to create stress, or, it's maybe not safe for me to have money because it just equals arguments. We need to start testing that belief system, and we need to start replacing that belief system with something that's actually true. Because remember that a belief is only a thought that we've thought so many times that we've created it as a belief. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true, because remember that we believed that the world was flat for a very long time. So our belief systems, I like to think of them as like a pair of glasses. We put them on and then they shape our whole way that we see the world. And it's not until we take them off, which we can do at any time, and we can choose to put on a new belief system or a new pair of glasses, which will then shape our reality for us. It takes a bit of work, but it is definitely possible. And part of the process for that is using mindfulness. So every time we notice ourselves thinking that belief, we just pause and we actually ask ourselves, is that true? Is that really true? And just by asking ourselves that question, we can quite often dismantle the belief. We might not replace it, but we can just start to see whether it's true or whether it's not. And if it's not true, we can start to think, well, if that wasn't true, what's the opposite of that belief? So a lot of my clients might say they might have that belief system that it's not safe for me to have money because they've seen people with it who they care about who have had arguments or have lost it or suffered from having it. So they have the belief system that it's not safe for me to have money. So anytime they feel that anxiety or that stress or that fear pop up, we just get them to stop and pause for a moment and just ask, is it really true? Is it unsafe for me to have money? And 9 times out of 10, maybe even 10 times out of 10, they'll turn around and say, no, it's not true. So that's just the starting process. Obviously, there's a lot more involved, but that's one thing that you can do to kind of test your belief systems.
Brilliant. I'm loving these questions. If anyone has any more questions, please put them up. There's another question's come in, and it's more about business. She says, I've got my own business and I always find it very stressful every year, charging more. So how can I improve that way of believing that I'm worth the yearly raises?
Money and self-worth. This is one of the biggest. I just did a webinar on this the other day on how to charge more. So the very first thing that I have an issue with is when people say charge your worth. You can't charge your worth because you can't put a price tag on your innate worth as an individual being, but you can put a price tag on the services or the products that you're selling. So it's really important to separate straight away whether you're charging your worth or whether you're charging for your services and the work that the value that you're putting out to the world. And what I always like to think about is don't focus on price, focus on value. And a lot of people perceive that people can't afford to pay more for your services, but then we're making an assumption on whether someone has money or someone doesn't. So whenever someone says to me, and I get it quite often, I can't afford it, I always question or reply to that with, is it about affordability or is it about priority? Because if I was to look at their spending, I'm sure that I would see, for example, if they told me I can't afford $50 a week to do something, if I looked at their spending, I'm sure I would see other priorities that they have going on that actually it's not about affordability at all. It's about priorities. So it's interesting to just see some of these dynamics at play. Charging more for your services is a whole workshop in itself, and maybe it's something that you could do in the future, Julia, with a class, because it's a massive topic and it's a great one to really deep dive into.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, we've got another question. These are brilliant. So when you've had bad spending habits for years/life, how long do you think it takes to change those habits?
How long's a piece of string? I like to think of our money habits just like any other habits: eating habits, exercise habits, relationship habits, self-care. Money is a self-care practice, and it takes time to change habits because we've had these habits for a lifetime. So we need to first understand that we can't change them overnight. And when we do approach changing our habits with money, say with spending, we don't want to go with an all or nothing approach, because straight away we're going sort of, if we use the gym analogy, if I'm suddenly like, okay, I'm going to get fit versus I'm not going to spend as much money anymore. So I go, okay, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. So for the first couple of days, I'm pretty good. I go to the gym, and then I don't go to the gym, and then I beat myself up for not going to the gym, and then I feel worse, and then I just give up. So I don't like that all or nothing approach. I'm more around, if you're looking at changing a habit, look at reducing it and slowly, incrementally changing it to a more positive or a more empowering. So instead of saying I'm not going to spend any money, just say I'm going to spend $5 less, for example. So it's just about really helping ourselves and supporting ourselves to create healthier habits rather than just punishing ourselves or depriving ourselves, because that's not going to work for us either.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, someone said that I have a group of my friends, they often go out for dinners and drinks, which is a huge expense. But if I say that I can't go anymore, then I'll be the one that always has to make excuses. Do you have any advice to help deal with this?
A couple of things. This is so common, and I know when we're trying to budget or we're trying to, save money, we can often feel like we are depriving ourselves or we're going to miss out on socializing or all the fun stuff. I really just challenge that, and I think, one, we can get more creative. We don't always have to spend money to, to have a good time or to socialize. We can do other things like have friends over for dinner, or go for a picnic, or go for a walk, or there's lots of different things that we can do. But I also encourage us to be more open about our relationship with money. And we don't sit around and ask our girlfriends about what's going on with their money situation. We talk about life and relationships and sex and like everything else but not money. And it would be so liberating to actually sit with a friend and say, you know what, I just don't have the money, or I just have other priorities at the moment that I'm trying to save for. So would it be okay if we did something else? And sometimes when we have that conversation, they turn around and say, oh, you know what? Me too. Thank God you said that. But because we don't talk about it, because it's so taboo, and we feel like we're going to be judged, and we feel like we're going to have someone tell us that, oh, well, you earn good money. Why can't you afford it? We feel like we're going to be judged, so we don't talk about it. But reality, we should be talking about it.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, especially, when we do want things like, well, a lot of us want things like, a house, or, a nice holiday every year, and be proud and be like, actually, I really want this. And so let's just, have dinner at each other's houses, or, and don't be afraid to hold back on your ambitions. I think that's another thing, with women as well. Sometimes we don't want to be the ambitious. We just want to, be easygoing and be like, yeah, that's fine. But actually, no, let's be proud about what we want in our life, and be strategic about how we're going to get there. So it's not always about I'm saving and depriving. It's about a more empowering conversation.
I think so. And it's about really enlisting your friends as your accountability and support partners too, because they're the ones that are going to help you enjoy it, but also help you reach the goals that you want to achieve. And I think it's really important that we do involve them and say, hey, I need your help if I'm going to get there. Because quite often we do. We need that support crew to go, you can do it, in our moments of weakness when we go, oh no, it doesn't matter, I'm never going to get there anyway. We want someone to go, no, you said to me to remind you not to do this. So I really believe that it's important that we have that crew with us when we need them.
Someone's asked a really interesting question. They said, what common problems do people approach you about, Leah, when they're coming to be coached towards getting a better money mindset?
A lot of people come to me because money's stressing them out, and it might not be that it's dire or that they're struggling day to day. I mean, it may be. I do definitely have clients like that, but it's also people who just feel like, they go to work, they earn good money, but they never have anything left over, or that they're not going to achieve what they actually want to achieve, or they don't even really know what they want to achieve with their money. A lot of people feel a little bit, I got an email today, for example, from someone saying, I'm just no good with money. It's just, I need some help. I get that a lot. And, I always just write back and say, well, welcome to the club. So many other people are in exactly the same boat. I think we feel so alone, and we feel like our problems with money are individual to us, when in reality, money is the leading cause of stress globally. It is the number one cause of relationship breakdown and divorce. It is a very, very significant thing in our lives. And because we don't have necessarily the skills to actually manage it appropriately, it's no wonder it's actually causing us a little bit of stress. So most people who come to me are just looking for a little bit of guidance to say, hey, there's this thing in my life called money, and I'm just really not sure on how to use it the way that I really need to achieve what I want to achieve. And we just forget that it is just a tool, a man-made tool that we can all learn how to use if we understand how we work as individuals. So what our emotions are, what drives us, what we're actually searching for in life. Once we get some clarity on that, the money stuff becomes a lot easier to manage.
Okay, someone's asked a question, said they want to ask for a pay rise. It's very overdue, but they feel very awkward having that conversation about their worth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any advice for that kind of conversation, which I know a lot of us hate? I've been there in the past, and put it off, which we shouldn't.
Yeah, first thing is don't put it off. One of my mottos in life is, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is they might say, not this year, or we'll give you less than you've asked for. Or it's a learning experience for you to learn how to communicate, how to do it in the future. If you don't ask, you'll never know, and you'll never get what you actually want to achieve. So first of all, separate it from you as an individual, and remember that when you do go for a pay rise, it's really important to actually display value, because that's what you've provided a lot of value to the company. And if you can demonstrate the value that you've provided, and that might be, hey, I'm always here, I'm working and I go above and beyond, or I've been here for so long and no one's given me a pay rise, everyone's overlooked me. Whatever the value is that you deliver, so not your value as an individual, but whatever you deliver in your workplace, that's what you really want to demonstrate. Because if you can demonstrate that, then it actually becomes a pretty simple yes equation for your employer. Definitely happy to answer that question and coach people. I do coach people on how to ask for a pay rise as well, even to how to put it in writing and how to put it across so that you do get a yes. But no one likes to put it out there. It's not a nice thing to do.
I just thought, Leah, you said that you were going to give away some abundance cards. Can you tell us a little bit about these cards? So I think that's really interesting, actually, about how to become more mindful.
Yeah. So I created some abundance affirmation cards, which are based on what I spoke about before, aligning your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions as with your actions with money. So they work in three ways. They're about tapping into the law of attraction. So the law of attraction is quite often dismissed as very woo-woo, and rightly so, because you can't just wish for things to get better. It doesn't work that way. You've got to follow it up with action. So these cards are around every month you set an intention, and that intention is all about, what do I actually want to have happen in my relationship with money? And it might be, okay, I'm going to be more action focused, or I'm going to be more mindful, or I'm going to be more focused. So you choose an action, and there's 12 different actions you can choose from. So then you've got your intention for the month. And then after that, you choose an area of focus. And these are your typical financial advice or financial literacy areas. So there's spending, there's saving, there's growing your money, there's learning about money, there's managing everyday money. There's 8 different topics. So you choose an area that you want to take action in, and it gives you all of the step-by-step guides on things you can do to improve your actions with money. And then to support you with the positive thoughts, there is a daily affirmation card as well. So there's it is a physical card set. We've just got a whole lot reprinted here in the US. They come with a little guidebook, so I'm quite excited to see these new ones out in the market. So I'm giving away some of those. I'm also giving away free online, membership to my online course, which is a 6-week online course. It's self-paced, and that is all about healing or improving your relationship with money as well.
And you said that there was about the free consultation for attendees. So I just gave you that link earlier. So if anyone's interested, that's amazingly kind. That's awesome. So I've just put the link there that Leo's given me for all Thrivers attendees. And what can they expect in that, Leo? What is it an opportunity to do?
So that's a 30-minute online chat with me about the money type quiz and your results. So we just have a look at what's come up for you, where you're at the moment with your relationship with money, and then I just give you a bit of an overview on some steps that I think you can take forward, whether it be actions or whether it's some mindset stuff, so that you've got a little bit of a where to from here, rather than just wondering what's next.
Brilliant. And I love, so if you want the abundance cards, we're going to be looking at the first people that email me. I've just put my email there. So yeah, just check us an email and let us know if you want those cards. And I really love that about this is what Thrivers is about as well. Every month we become, as a time to become mindful about our wealth. It's not always been an attractive topic, but the more we bring our attention back to it, like you were saying, it's the more likely we are to achieve our financial goals. And in previous workshops, we've actually been looking at our goals, and if you focus on what they are, then refusing a paid coffee out. I know in the city it's such a bad habit to get into. It can lead to multiple coffees out, and then you're actually spending a fortune, the price of a small car at the end of the year. So and I think your cards have really helped that. If there's something like every morning to remind you in a more positive way, instead of feeling like depriving of yourself, then that might work wonders. And I'd love to hear if that does help.
Yeah, me too. I think it's we need to just start doing things to support us to achieve what we really want to do and what we really want to achieve, and creating little reminders, and putting things like even on your credit card you could put a little reminder with a sticker with what you're saving for. There's little things that you can do like that to really support you, to say, well, I really need some help to achieve these goals, and I'm going to give myself the best chance to do that. We are creatures of habit, so it's important that we work with ourselves instead of against ourselves.
I definitely feel like I need one of those messages when you're out having a great time with your friends and suddenly you become the rounds queen.
You need that little fairy going, hey, what about me?
Like you said, great fun, just okay, brilliant. So thank you so much, Leah. That was absolutely brilliant. So if people do want to contact you about coaching, or obviously you've got this brilliant introduction through the free consultation, so do reach out to Leah if you want to take that up, because that'll be brilliant. And so the next Thriver class is coming up. We've partnered with the amazing Suzanne Brower, and we've done workshops with her before. She's an executive life coach, and she works specifically with people in their careers and trying to get to the next level, or business owners. And she's going to be teaching us how to speak up, especially when it really counts in things like boardroom meetings, or when we're put on the spot, and can be really awkward situations, but it's really empowering to overcome any anxieties we have about that. So she's going to be giving us tips, and we're actually going to be doing things in the workshop. She's got some boardroom speaking activities we can do, so when we go in there we feel a lot more confident. So if you are interested in having that skill, then please join us for the next one. That's in a week's time. I'm just going to put the link up in the chat here, so you've got somewhere to grab that. And yes, so we really hope you enjoyed that, and please let us know how you go. As I said, this video is going to be available to everyone who's signed up for this class, and you'll be getting that in the next few hours. And thank you so much again, Leah, for joining us. Oh my gosh, if you weren't here at the beginning, Leah's in Vancouver and it's 1 a.m. or it's 2 a.m. in the morning. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and yeah, thank you everyone for attending, and please reach out if you've got any questions. Always happy to have a chat.
Brilliant. Okay, keep going for your goals, ladies, and believing in yourselves, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.